Hey there, this is Rocky from businesswritingtutorials.com, and welcome to the next installment on this mini-series on punctuation usage in business writing. In this lesson, we're going to look at two uses of apostrophes. So apostrophes are used to express contractions and possessives. We'll go over both quickly. Let's contractions. And first, you should note that regardless of whether we're doing contractions or possessives, we're always going to use this right single mark. Okay. And for contractions, basically this symbol, this apostrophe, is just replacing either one letter or a series of letters. And take a look at some examples. For example, even just in this title here, apostrophes and contractions continued, the apostrophe cuts out a few letters and continued, or replaces. So let's just start with one of the most commonly confused examples. Should we use its or its? With, pronounced the same of course, but one with the apostrophe and one without. Well, if it has the apostrophe, we know that we're replacing some letter. So what letter are we replacing? Well, we're replacing the I and is. So it's raining, for example, it is raining. So you know to use a apostrophe if you can say it is. So if you can say it is, it's important, all of those phrases where you could replace it with it is, it's possible, it's interesting, all of those would use an apostrophe because it is important, it is interesting. So it's without an apostrophe shows possession, which we'll go into in the next lesson, but just to show the difference here, let's imagine that we were talking about a dog and we said its leg was hurt in the dog park. Well, this doesn't take an apostrophe because we're not replacing anything. This is ownership. Okay, let's get back to contractions. This is another one that I've seen recently in two different papers actually, and I hadn't seen it for a long time, but we'll just go over it quickly. So would've or would've. The confusion here is because we would pronounce these basically the same, but the apostrophe, of course, is replacing something. Well, what is it replacing? It's replacing the HA and have. So this isn't actually formal English, and I wouldn't recommend using this at all, actually, but just to show you the difference. I would have gone is I would have gone, but it didn't have any money. Actually, I should have included a comma here based on our comma lesson, because we have one of the coordinating conjunctions here, and we have two independent clauses. So a little mistake on my part. And we have another contraction here, didn't, and you can guess what the apostrophe is replacing. It's replacing the O and not. Would of is simply incorrect English. Doesn't mean anything. Maybe you can make a sentence that works out of it. I'd have to think about that, but for the most part, it's just incorrect. Okay, another common one that is often just written incorrectly. The apostrophe has to replace something. It's replacing the NO and cannot. That is one word, cannot. Same thing for won't. So it's not W-O-N-T, it's W-O-N apostrophe T. So this is just simply an error. Okay, so that's it actually for contractions. That's pretty easy. So just remember you're replacing either one or more letters. Okay, now let's look at possession. Again, we're going to use the same right-facing mark. Okay, this time it's the same punctuation mark, but we're using it for a completely different purpose. And we're using it to show possession. So we're not replacing any letters this time. We're just showing that something, or could be a thing, could be an idea, belongs to, oops, where was it here? Mr. Smith's phone. We don't have two S's because the S it's not part of his name, and we looked again at another one. Here, we only have one because the S isn't part of the name. This we had to pluralize, so it falls into this exception of the only time that the apostrophe goes on the outside, because this is a plural case. Okay, so let's get back to where we were. You can always go back over this afterwards if it's starting to get a little confusing. Again, we're sticking with our base rule of always adding apostrophe s unless it's a plural. So essentially, if you can just remember that the plurals take the apostrophe on the outside and everything else you add apostrophe s, you should pretty much always get it right. Okay. We do have two other cases that we have to look at before we finish up this lesson. And that's the case where you have more than one owner. And in this case, it depends on whether they share ownership or not. So, for example, Smith and Johnson's study, if you just put one apostrophe s here, or an apostrophe s after the last name, then that is going to tell you that they share ownership of whatever item or idea. In this case, there's two authors to one study. Mom and Dad's anniversary. They share that. It's on the same day, so it's just one apostrophe. And Jess and Gus's street. In this case, the one apostrophe would tell us that they live on the same street. Some of my graphics are out of order here, but it's okay. So, but if they own different things, then we have to use two apostrophes. So we'll use the same examples from the last slide. Smith's and Johnson's studies. Well, there's more than one study. They each have a study, and by putting the extra apostrophe s on each name, one apostrophe s, but one on each name, then you tell the reader that they are each owning their own thing. For example, Mom's and Dad's towels may be his and hers towels. Jess's and Gus's streets, now this is plural. This tells the reader that they live on different streets. So this is just a small distinction, and it doesn't come up very frequently, but I figured I'd mention it. So that's it for our lesson on apostrophes for contractions and possessives. Hopefully that was pretty straightforward, and of course you can always look for more resources online. Good luck.